Good evening, everyone. This meeting of the Barnstable Infrastructure and Energy Committee is being recorded and will be posted for future viewing on the Town of Barnstable website. Under Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20, anyone else desiring to make such a recording or transmission must notify the chair. Barry, over to you.
Okay, great. Thanks, Chris. Let us start with the minutes of the November 12th meeting. I do have one slight edit to this. On page 7, and this is the top of the page, the first sentence. This is regard the town's vote on the Commonwealth Wind or New England Wind 2 project. It says the council voted to oppose the specific project and the contract was not awarded. So my suggestion is to amend the sentence to read, so it reads, the council voted to oppose the specific project, period. There was no contract that was before the town council. The issue, as I understand it, was opposing the project before the Energy Facility Siting Board or other pertinent agencies, and apparently the proposal had not even been formally made to the siting board. But with that, I would propose that the minutes be adopted unless anyone has any other comment. Okay, with that amendment, is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So move.
Okay, I'll second it. All in favor, raise their hands.
Aye.
Okay, so the minutes with that modification is unanimously adopted. So let's go to the next item, election of the vice chair. We talked about that at the last meeting. I've had some discussions with people. I've asked, I think also at the last meeting, if there's anyone interested in this position, that they contact me. I've had a discussion with Chris Gloninger, who's interested in the position. I'm going to nominate Chris for the position of vice chairman. Is there a second for that?
I second it. We all second it.
Okay. And so my next question, is there a nomination for anyone else for the position of vice chair? Appearing none, let us vote for Chris as vice chair. All in favor, raise your hands.
Okay.
So that's unanimous. So Chris, you are the new vice chair. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks all.
Thank you very much, Chris.
You and in connection with that, Chris, is there anything you want to add, or?
No, and thanks for your support, everyone. And I'm looking forward to helping you out, Barry, especially when you're away or need time off. So
Right.
looking forward to it.
I really do appreciate it. Okay, great. All right, so let's move on to old business. Starting with green communities. So I did have a conversation with Lisa Sullivan at DOER, who's our regional representative. I did circulate an email from DOER on the Green Communities program. So relevant to our situation, there was a modification to the DOER's vehicle policy, which is one of the adopting that as one of the 4 criteria. So Lisa suggested that I contact the pertinent people in town, which I guess are Dave Anthony and Sean Hogan, to first of all make sure that they're aware of this, and to because I think they were in compliance with the prior policy, but now the policy apparently has changed. So I will do that. There was a interesting presentation that summarized some of the key components of the stretch code. The other thing that I discussed with Lisa was the timing of finalizing or adopting the regulations that had been proposed that basically would make the stretch code more lenient, particularly with regard to major renovations or additions. And I really didn't get any updates, so that, unsurprisingly, that's going to take some more time. I also asked about any word on the updating the economic analysis, and I didn't really get anything new there either. But there's one other development I can circulate to the committee, although it's pretty tough reading. So every 3 years, the Mass Save program goes through major changes, and for this go around, there's been a proposal from the Mass Save program administrators, which are the utilities and DOE as part of that, to modify the program. That's sort of relevant to the stretch code because one of the, at least to the economic analysis, because the stretch code analysis had assumed the benefits of the Mass Save program, rebates for new homes that are all electric. Those incentives are changed, and they're actually an array based on I guess how good the measures are in terms of weatherization and the specific HVAC appliances in terms of being Energy Star rated and beyond that. So it's more sophisticated, and it's also relevant to whether what are the costs, if any, associated with meeting the stretch code requirements. So that I might as well circulate that. I did try to read through it, and it was if when we get into this in more detail, it will require people who are more knowledgeable than I am, even after reading this. So
Terry,
yeah.
I don't know the details of this, but Maggie Downey, who is the executive director of Cape Light Compact, is on another group that I'm on, another board. And as she was talking about this, I got the impression that one of the changes was going to be a little bit of a backing off of the control by the gas folks, the gas utilities. So I'll try to follow up with her and see if I was misunderstanding that. But there actually were some public hearings. I think they've already happened. I think they've been this past week. People giving public comment on some of these changes. Does that sound right to you? Or does that
I think the way that it read, and this may have been an effort to be politic here, is that it talked about the coordination of the electric and gas utilities. But and this is this happened over a period of years here. The program a number of years ago was focused on energy conservation, better insulation, more efficient appliances. The focus now is more towards decarbonization. So the rebates that were for highly efficient gas furnaces, for example,
Yes, yeah,
don't exist anymore.
okay, that's,
so
yeah, that was sort of the drift I got.
yeah, so they're basically going to electrification, heat pumps, different levels of, I guess, of electrification, maybe is the best
Yeah,
way
and
to put
even
it.
geothermal, I think, is mentioned a little bit more than it was.
Yeah, so there are specific, which I don't think there was before. There are specific additional incentives for geothermal heat pumps, which
Mhm.
are more expensive than the typical air heat pumps, but I think are more efficient.
Quite a bit more efficient.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. I thought I had another point about that, but I'm not really remembering it. It's very tricky for us being interested in promoting this green communities application to have the criteria changing, because it's really a tough call to be asking for a vote when things are changing, right? I mean, we're kind of
Well,
stuck.
I think that's the nature of the beast, because the building codes change, I think, on a 3-year cycle as well. And the mass save programs are on a 3-year cycle. So yeah, so I think,
So how
yeah,
long do
we
we
just have,
wait? I just get so discouraged when I look at the map of the state and they show, the communities that are totally out of the loop like us. And then the Outer Cape communities, 3 of them are actually in the super saver or whatever, climate leader category. And there's so many opportunities if you're a green community that we're not even eligible for.
yeah, well, we're wading through it, and it's just if we want to bring it to the town council, we just have to get smart on it, and as these things update.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
I agree. And we're we're making progress. We're learning more, but it's painfully slow.
so all right, so I guess as a follow-up, I guess the other thing is whether we want to, apparently some of the other committees, they update the town council of or they ask to be on the agenda as to where what they're doing, where they're headed. Maybe we might do that, but I would suggest we wait until after the first of the year. I think that about that time, there's a decent chance that DOER may finalize its regulations on the renovations and major additions. So I think that's the point that's important in terms of going to the town council. And probably the first part of that would be a workshop, so that both to answer some of the questions that were raised in the last go around, but also so that counselors can be assured that they have a grasp of the basic facts.
Mhm.
So I guess as kind of the follow through, I will follow up with David Anthony and or Sean Hogan as discussed.
That sounds good.
Okay, anything else? If not, let's move on to food waste. John, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Okay, I don't have a whole lot new to report. I think, Barry, you and I are planning to go down to the transfer station sometime soon and do some interviewing of the users to see what we can learn about what obstacles people have and what to separating their food waste. What we can try to learn more about what we could do to change that behavior. On the commercial side, my current thinking is before we send out a blast email to all the food serving establishments in town, I thought it would be a good idea to see what other towns, particularly Falmouth, are doing. Because it would be good, I think, if on the commercial side, if we can coordinate with other, make it more of a Cape-wide or county-wide effort. And so I'm going to try to see what I can find about what if any other towns are doing it. I know Falmouth is fairly active in
Okay. Well,
food
look,
waste.
Good. Go ahead and do that.
Yeah.
Let's go back to the survey because I have a couple of
Sure.
questions about that. So before I would start a survey, want to have the questions that would be asked. And
Sure,
so,
I will.
yeah, so if you could draft those,
Mhm.
and I would like to see them, and I guess if anybody else would like to see them. So that's the first part of it. And I guess the second part is, I was thinking if I'm just I'm out there to put away my paper and plastics and someone comes up to me and talks to me and says they're a member of a town committee, I just might be a little bit suspicious. So I was wondering, if they had some identification, their name and the coat of arms of the Infrastructure and Energy Committee.
Mhm. What are you? Can you tell me a little bit more of what you're envisioning
Well,
there?
yeah, that the coat of arms is a bit of a joke,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
there's a way of identifying you, at least so you come up to me and I'm just trying to get rid of my paper.
Yeah.
And I say I have a couple of questions, and if you had something that said your name and or the committee you're on or something, that would make me a little more comfortable.
How about
Yeah.
how about the survey is on letterhead, town letterhead, or whatever our letterhead is. We've had things on letterhead before.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that's easy enough if you want to send me the questions or whatever. I can also look and see what we have in our office supply closet and see if we have like those custom name tags, almost little plastic hangers, and I can make up,
Yeah, that would be great. Or
John
something.
Solomon, Infrastructure and
Yeah.
Energy Committee.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe we can put on like some of those, put on one of those safety vests. Those always make you look official.
Yeah,
Or
I
the
think
flip
I'd have
phone
to ask,
vest.
but yeah, we can look
I
at
think the
into
name
it.
tag idea is a good one. That should be pretty easy.
Okay, so Johnny, you could work on the questions, and Chris, you
Yeah.
could work on the other stuff. I think that would be helpful in getting people to talk, frankly. So let's do that, and I can work on the coat of arms in my spare time.
Good. I'm looking forward to that.
I have something to offer which might be useful. And this is not, I wasn't particularly going out trying to do research on my own on food waste, but I went to a meeting on December 21st. It was the annual summit of the Care for the Cape and Islands. They're an organization that's focused primarily on working with the hospitality industry on being more attuned to recycling, materials and so forth. And their 4-hour summit included a talk by the Falmouth School District, by the teacher who had really led the charge on the composting conversion that they went through last year, and that was pretty fascinating. And that's one of the things that I asked Chris to forward to everybody. If you wondered what is this CARE Summit is, it was that talk. And the other one that was fascinating was Recycle Works collaborating with the Hyannis Yacht Club. Hyannis Yacht Club serves a ton of meals over the summer particularly, and they've converted to food waste composting with the help of Recycle Works, Carrie Purcell, and Black Earth picks up for both these projects, both the yacht club and the school district in Falmouth. And Falmouth has a few other town sites where Black Earth picks up also. That's kind of part of their whole thing. Well, at this conference, I happened to meet a gentleman named Alan Robinson, who is the chairman of the Falmouth Town Citizens Solid Waste Committee. So he would be a good person for us to talk to, and he's offered to meet. In fact, I was going to meet with him because we had a couple interesting things. He's also a rower, which your wife might be interested in, John. And anyway, they have, he's led the charge on this solid waste, food waste pickup, as well as the nip bottles. They've outlawed the little nip bottles in Falmouth. But anyway, if you would like to talk to him, I'm meeting with him Thursday morning, just sort of a social / common interest chat. And I can talk to you more about that if you're interested. But these two presentations were fantastic, inspiring. And I think if we are to send out a letter or even a survey to other food permit holders in the town, it might be nice to talk to the yacht club. They were very enthusiastic. It was the chef and the manager who led the charge on this food waste composting. And they talked about 2 steps forward, 1 step back, but they had a lot of help from Recycle Works, and their membership was very supportive, and it's a great talk. Actually, they would probably be happy, one or both of them, to go through their talk with us at one of our subsequent meetings. I found it very encouraging because they're a fairly large creator of food waste, and they've had a very successful move into this new behavior, and Black Earth is their supporter. So I think if we send an email blast out, it's nice to let the establishments know where they might turn for help. So anyway, that's I just kind of ran into these things, and I thought, wow, that really could help us out with at least hearing how somebody else has gone through this.
Yeah, I thought the materials you sent were very good. There was some really useful stuff in there, and yeah, I would like to join the Thursday morning meeting.
Good. Well, it's going to be Mashpee Commons at 9:30, so I'll send you the Cape Cod coffee. But I think it's going to be interesting just to see how did they do it, and he attended this afternoon session. I didn't get to chat with him too much, other than to find out that we had some common challenges.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thanks for setting that up.
Yeah, and Jane, thanks for calling that to our attention. Appreciate that.
Sure.
Okay, anything else on food waste? I mean, I just add, I read this and then I try to locate it without success. But a few weeks ago, there was an article, I think in the Boston Globe, that basically said, based on somebody's analysis, that Massachusetts was the state that
we were the best,
the most advanced in terms of reducing food waste, which I think they said was like about 10%, which is far below, I think, what their goal is, but it's just a difficult problem. Yeah.
Well, one really interesting thing about the schools, that John, you particularly, but all of us will be interested, I think, in is that schools create a much larger percentage of food waste than what's in, we're operating with the number of something like 30 to 35% of our solid waste for the town is probably food waste. Well, schools is almost double that. So if you can get first of all, if you can figure out what food to serve so the kids eat it, that's probably the better approach. But in the meantime, collecting from schools is a very high target area to start with. And so anyway, that was something I wasn't aware of. I mean, I hadn't thought about it. I think some people had commented, but it was striking in her presentation. The teacher was very enthusiastic and had a lot of data besides just boundless schools. She's very passionate about the whole topic.
Good. That's useful information. Chris, I'm going to hand it over to you to talk about climate change and climate science.
Thanks, Barry. Let me see if I can share this. Chris, could you give me sharing privileges? So I've been working on those, the ocean water temperatures for the buoy and Nantucket Sound. And a little bit of an interesting discovery. I started with December numbers, and the average temperatures 38 degrees by now. And the water temperature is running at 47 degrees last check. So that's the long-standing average, which goes back to about 2009. So it's going to take a little bit more digging to go month by month, but I wanted to start with December. So we're significantly warmer than average.
Chris, you should be able to share now.
Awesome. This is...
Say that again. It's usually, the average is 38 and we're 47?
Yeah, so nearly 10 degrees above average right now, which is quite shocking, which kind of plays into the storm that we're going to see Wednesday, another sou'easter, which we've seen a lot of recently. But put just a couple of these graphics together, and again, this isn't local to us in Barnstable, but I thought it was worth talking about. If you plot the linear trend, and really this is just showing up now, that linear warming is not capturing the rate of warming that we're seeing. If you look at the data points that are in recent years, it's well above that trend, which indeed is showing that the warming is accelerating globally. After we did have the warmest fall on record across the United States, which is pretty significant. This was the warmest season out of the year when it comes to being above average. So that was quite remarkable. But if you look at, well, I had that graphic, but I don't need to show. We're on track, though, for the hottest year on record. And I made this, and I'll go back to this. I just screwed up the order, but if you're talking about it with people, I think this is a really good way to communicate it. Like if you look at our body temperature, which is normally 98.6 degrees, doctors classify, and Jane, correct me if I'm wrong, I think a fever starts around 100.4. Well, the Earth's temperature, if you use this as an analogy, is currently at 101.4. So this is the first year on record where that average temperature is 1.5 degrees Celsius above the industrial average, which is quite remarkable. So when people say, oh, it's only a degree or 1.5 degrees warming, if you put it in terms like this, I think it can help people understand that, yes, this is a problem. This was the Paris Accord. This was the IPCC's goal to stay below 1.5. Well, we're there now, the first year on record that we've made it there, and will likely stay above it. And it'll only get worse from here if we don't continue to cut emissions, which, again, green communities plays a small part in that, but it's an important part nonetheless. So if you're talking to people, I love this analogy just because makes it clear to them that this isn't 61 day, 100 degrees the next. That's weather, right? But if you look at the whole globe on the whole, as a whole, look at the human body temperature that really kind of helps show the issue that we're having and just how dangerous it is.
Well, Chris, I really like that. And especially if you say, think how you feel when you have a fever of 101.4.
Yeah.
You feel lousy. Well,
Mhm.
guess what? So does the earth, you know?
Exactly. It's a
I
great
think
point.
that's, that's a good way to kind of, embellish the analogy a little bit more to say, hey, do you want to sit at 101.4 or do you do something? So you take Motrin or you take, whatever,
Great point.
Tylenol or whatever, and we're not doing that. We're just waiting till the storms come through, and then we're mopping up the mess, or we're trying to.
So-
It's really, it's not, it's an emergency, which we've declared as a town several years ago. I don't feel like we're acting as if it's an emergency. So anyway, I'm sorry for that outburst, but
I agree.
Yeah, totally understand that. Hey, Chris, I wanted just another way of looking at it. So I've read something similar. I actually not the 2024, but I think even last year we're getting very close to the 1.5 centigrade, and I've read different things about the sort of what the expectation was for reaching the 1.5 degree, what year, somewhere between 2030 and 2040. And I was wondering if there's any good, but basically what's happening, we're accelerating the pace of it. We're getting closer to those points that the desire was to keep global warming to that level. And of course, the other is 2 degrees centigrade. That we're definitely probably going to reach that point quicker than projected. But from a timing standpoint, what information do you have on that?
Yeah, that's a great point. In fact, last year we hit it a couple of times, that 1.5 degrees Celsius kind of threshold, and that was said, oh, well, it's kind of a cautionary tale, a preview of things to come. And I really don't think that the scientific community was ready for it to be a sustained case that we had this year, that the entire year would end up being above that. And especially if you looked at the forecast for a La Nina pattern, and a La Nina, the cooler than normal ocean water temperatures around the tropical regions of the Pacific, should offset some of that warming. So everyone was saying, oh, it's just because of El Nino amplifying the impacts last year. Well, you can take that argument and essentially throw it out the window. And that goes to my point of showing the graph that it isn't linear, and they've been kind of using that linear relationship to tell you that it wouldn't be into the 2030s until we reach that point. But in fact, in recent years, that rate of warming has accelerated quite dramatically, even within the last 5 years. So the latest thinking that I recently read in a peer-reviewed report that said 2 degrees, we really have enough emissions to really get us there. And the current policies we have in place will mean that we get to that point probably within a couple of decades, which is quite shocking. And they warn that we'd need greater carbon capture technology to kind of keep us to that 2 degree mark, which again, very concerning. But it shows that was, one of the reasons why I pointed out that graph. You saw those
Right.
data points above the linear warming trend.
So let me what I got from what you just said is that the projections were that, were business as usual, call it. We would get to the 1.5 degrees centigrade in the 2030s, and here we are in 2024, and we're already there. Is that a fair summary?
That's fair. I mean, it's possible. I mean, if you look at just let me show this once more so you can kind of see. There are some years that are below that, right? But for us to drop below 1.5 would be fairly significant event for it to occur. Maybe some major volcanic eruption that spews aerosols up into the atmosphere, reflecting the sun's energy. But if you look at these and you look at the linear trend. And again, that is why if you continue that linear trend out, that gets to your points, Barry, of not until the mid to late 2030s. But you can't say that this is linear, especially starting around 2018. So, yeah.
Well, thank you,
Like
Chris.
exponential.
That's
Right.
very, very useful, very interesting, but very troubling at the same time. Okay, anything else for climate change or climate change science? Okay, all right,
Actually,
let's move on
I
to.
do have one question for Chris.
Right.
Was your group working with the town on the projection of sea level rise for the Sandy Neck planning?
Yeah, that's ours. So Woods Hole Group developed the MCFRM, which is Massachusetts flood modeling, for all intents and purposes, that we've done for every municipality, every section of coastline. So we were commissioned by DOT, even though it's a DOT product, it's it's EEA that essentially took over that product, and they've kind of taken it and run with it. But that is our project up in Sandy Neck. But all of the data that's used for planning purposes, Jane, in not just Barnstable County, but anywhere along the coast of Massachusetts, uses that as for planning purposes, that data set.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah. Good to know. So the next we have on our agenda is air quality monitoring, and we can talk about it, but maybe Jane, I'll ask you, because you talked about that at the last meeting. Although I think at the end of that, we thought, well, maybe this is not something that we do on an ongoing basis like the other topics. But I'll hand it to you.
It doesn't have to be an ongoing basis, except that as you adopt green communities and more green building, and they talk about energy recovery ventilation, and they're talking about indoor air quality more with some of these new building standards. And I did have one update. I don't know if I told the whole committee or if I just told you, Barry, but I did take it on myself to go and chat with our school superintendent, because I was hearing briefings by where the parents were able to talk to the school committee and the superintendent and a building inspector on the mold problem in the middle school. One of our schools is I think it's 4th and 5th or 5th and 6th grade only, the Barnstable Unified Elementary, and some of the parents were horrified. They were pulling their kids out of the school. Some of the staff were not able to go to work. They had a black mold issue in the summer, and they remediated it with a $500,000 project, and they opened the school 2 weeks late. And I was listening to some of the sessions that were happening after this, after they'd already had the kids back in the school and the teachers back in the school, and people were still not happy and not breathing well. And I did quite a bit of work with indoor air quality, not work, but I was on a interdisciplinary committee at NIH where we were actually challenging the Green Building Council on their LEED certification in the early days, about 15 years ago, because they left indoor air quality as an optional category of what needed to be addressed in a green building rating system, where you were trying to be a LEED Gold or LEED Platinum building. Initially, the air quality was optional. It was very focused on energy efficiency, and that's changed now. But subsequent to that, I've ended up meeting people whose profession is focused on indoor air quality. And so besides being able to mention to the superintendent that, there might be something besides mold that was making people sick, and there might be, if there is still some mold, there may be some people that are more sensitive to it than others, just like some of us get horrible hay fever, seasonal allergies, other people aren't bothered by it. So anyway, I was encouraging her, and I met with her and the building supervisor, encouraging them to have some indoor air quality monitoring so that they could be sure that they really had solved the problem. And it upset me a little bit, or concerned me, that the specialist who had been inspecting the building after the treatment was doing surface testing, tape testing, looking for mold. And it can be in the air. You can totally miss it if you do surface testing. So anyway, I happened to talk to some friends of mine ahead of this session I had with her, and they were offering to provide 3 months of indoor air quality monitoring pro bono, to let them see what types of information it might result in. And the goal is it can tell you if there's something besides mold. Maybe there's some volatile organic compounds, maybe there's something else in the school air that's bothering people. And so that is going to happen. That's been followed up. I backed away. I said, listen, I just want to let you know about this offer. I have no financial interest in this. I'm just interested that you have this information, and that there is a way to, what the air quality people talk about is, we want to make the invisible visible. So we understand what might be making people sick indoors. Indoor air quality is 2 to 5 times more polluted than the outdoor air in the same place. So we're more likely to get sick from indoor air than from outdoor air pollution. And it's a whole variety of things. So anyway, she was interested, and so the building manager was as well. And they've since followed up with some of the folks I know that do this for a living, and they're going to have that elementary school monitored for a few months starting in late January, I think. And of interest, if you want to see what value this might have, you can go to the Boston Public School System, go to their website. They monitor the air in all their school buildings. And in one of their high schools in Charlestown, I believe, has something like, it's a huge number. I'm thinking it's close to 20, maybe more monitors. I don't know that they're in every classroom, and anybody can check any building, any room in any building for any given time. It's a live streamed. So that's reassuring to the parents. It's reassuring to the staff. And they have quite a nice write-up on their website about how valuable this has been to the district. It's cut absences. It's improved health of all the building occupants. So anyway, that's my follow-up. But that this is a piece, indoor air quality is a piece of building codes. And I honestly am, I don't have the specifics, but green building.
Jane, yeah, just to follow up on that, that's one question that I have that's still unanswered, which is when they last modified the stretch codes, they did amend them with forget better ventilation practices.
Energy recovery ventilation,
Right,
which is
right.
what all the Habitat homes do. They have that.
So what was unclear to me, they did this for both the base code and the stretch code. What is unclear to me is whether they did it in a way for the stretch code that promotes health and indoor air quality more than they did for the base code. But that's
I'll try to figure that out. I'm sorry, I don't have that available.
Yeah, if you could do that, that would be great, because that's
I'm gonna ask Allison, because she works with this all the time. Allison Alessi, I may see, but
okay, yeah, that would be, maybe we
I'll
could
figure that out. But
next, yeah, if you could
huge, that's a huge issue, because just like with climate change is happening and we're warming, we are going to have another pandemic. I'm sorry to disappoint people, but it may be bird flu, or it may be something we don't know about yet, but we will have another pandemic, because we have an unhealthy population. We're indoors 90% of the time, whether we're in our homes and offices or whether we're indoors together traveling, and things travel around the world probably in less than 24 hours. Once something starts, it's basically in all major airports. So it does behoove us to pay more attention to indoor air quality.
Okay. So maybe, Jane, for a to-do for next meeting for you, if you could, look into and kind of report back about from a really just an air quality standpoint and the
I'll do
practices
that.
of the base
Yeah.
code between the stretch code. Are they basically the same, or does the stretch code have additional requirements that are more promotive of health and indoor air quality? Okay. All right. Great. All right. With that, anything more on indoor air quality? If not, additional updates from the committee chair. So anyways, what I'm going to talk about may seem somewhat to the side of things that we're doing, but in other ways, it's directly related. So a couple of weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, I was reading these reports from the Trump administration, a plan to eliminate the tax credits for electric vehicles. And then there was more written about that. So it occurred to me, and I was not planning on buying one, at least for a couple of years. So it occurred to me, well, maybe this is the time to do it, because if the tax credits are $7,500, and even the manufacturers that don't qualify for them, they're offering an equivalent reduction in the price to compete with the companies that do qualify. So I went out and I bought an electric vehicle, and a friend and neighbor of mine, I talked about, he did the same thing. And so and there's also discussion about removing or changing the tax credits for solar and for heat pumps at the federal level. And I was talking about this. I joined Temple in Falmouth, and I was asked to give a talk about this, which I'm doing this Friday. But obviously people have financial constraints, and these tax credits, $7,500 for electric vehicle can be more for that. And solar, it's 30% of the capital cost. Heat pumps are a couple $1,000s. So, people should be aware of that, and, make judgments about if they're thinking about doing it sometime in the future, that maybe now is the best time when, that those subsidies are still in place. So I thought I would raise that. The other thing is instituting tariffs, which could take place by executive order, could also affect the economics as well of whether it's heat pumps or solar or electric vehicles. So there, and as well as changing rules. So I just thought I would raise that, because we talk a lot about policies and what are the programs for this and that, but in most cases it depends on what individuals do. It's to incentivize people to take action to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions. But if some of them are going away, people should be aware of this and make the decisions that they feel comfortable making. So that's what I have to say about that.
So do you think we should, write an op-ed or something and just say, hey, pay attention? This might be it. I mean, how do we get the word out? I mean, some people will know, other people, maybe another publication or some sort of media presence.
Yeah, no, I think so. And I've actually read, this is not an idea that's unique to me. So other people have thought about this, and there is some stuff written about it. But I can follow up. I can circulate my remarks, which are still in process, after I give them Friday. And yeah, no, I think publicizing this as an op-ed piece. I think it's important.
I think it is too, and
Yeah.
obviously, you know how we've we've gone all electric, and we bought our EV last winter, and we're not at all sorry, and we're charging it from the solar we generate on our roof most of the time when we're home, um, and I'm glad we're there, and we definitely appreciated the tax credits along the way for just about everything we've done. But that, it's going to be very tricky for them to do what they say they're going to do, but maybe they'll do it anyway. I mean, it's kind of a bipartisan benefit that they're talking about removing. And
Yeah. So
but I still think it's worth being cautious, and I applaud you for moving out and doing what you did. But I still think it's going to be quite interesting, because most of the Inflation Reduction Act money is going to red states. It's going to red communities.
that's true. And
So it's going to be interesting to see
and
if
there are different things that could happen on different timetables. But I think what's driving this is the current tax law for individual taxes expires at the end of 2025. And so there is discussion in some Republican circles to do away with these tax credits as a way of being able to keep the existing tax cut in effect without creating a big problem for the deficit. So, how that works out is unclear. But yeah, so the timetable, is now until really the end of 2025, I think. But there are some things that could be done by executive order that would have a big effect potentially by next month, by the end of next month. So anyway, what I'll do is I'll work on that. I'll circulate something, but and I don't know whether that's something we want to do as a committee or individually, or I haven't really thought that through. But getting the word out there, I think is an important thing.
might be a good idea to just say something to WCAI or some of our local public radio stations, saying, "Hey, this might be a good topic to have on one of your community updates."
Yeah, that's good.
Sooner than later, and
yeah.
that wouldn't have to be us as an official committee, but you or me or any of us as individuals. Yeah. Hey, this might be a big interest to our local communities.
So, I would say public communications is not my strength, and or my background for that matter. But maybe Chris, that's probably more more in your background, I think. But yeah, maybe we could have some of this.
Both Chris's. Both of our Chris's are communicators.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, that's true. So
it could even be on the Chris Gadd. It could even be on the weekly e-newsletter that comes out from the town, just as an information item for Barnstable residents.
It could be, yeah. It's
just
easy enough to get stuff on there. I can look into communicating that.
This is a heads up. We don't know for sure what's going to happen, but there's a chance that some of these incentives are going to go away. So,
yeah, and I just for what it's worth, this friend of mine who heard that I was thinking about it, called me up and we talked about it. And the end of the conversation was, I'm not in the market for a new car. I don't, frankly, I don't know if I can afford it right now. But he gave it some thought. He ended up doing it anyway. So, okay, well, let's move off to, let me see if I have any other updates. I guess Yeah, there are a couple of things that I'll relate from a town council, recent town council meetings. So there was a petition to basically have the town council reconsider its vote approving a side letter with Park City Wind or New England Wind 1. And there was a discussion about that. And the town council voted not to reconsider. The vote failed, although the vote was tied. So that's a report on that. I think I had talked about that at a prior meeting. And also this MIT student group, they did give a presentation in front of the town council. They have been talking with stakeholders regarding the offshore wind projects, and their focus may have been on the New England Wind 2 or the project, or Commonwealth Wind, the project that would make landfall at Dowses Beach, although I'm not really clear about that. But in any event, they just reported they've had discussions. They're going to it's for a student class, and I guess it was the end of the semester, and the next class will take it up. But that is and they're looking at not just Barnstable. They're looking at in a much larger context of other similar projects.
Will they
So-
also be looking at the Craigville Beach Landing too?
I don't know. It more is focusing on the process of communications with, I guess, the town and residents and the developer.
Because it's not quite as outspoken, but it's pretty close. There are many of the same people that are concerned about the Craigville Beach Landing. I forget what the names are. The names keep changing, but
Yeah, and yeah, it's not clear to me.
that was approved. I mean, that one's going forward, I believe.
Yes. So it may have been that the focus was on the third project, which I'm not really clear about that.
Okay.
But in any event, that so that ends my updates.
Barry, just
yeah.
before that, Councilor Turkelson has raised their hand.
Sure.
Hi,
Krista,
everybody.
maybe you could add some
Yeah,
light. Yeah.
about the MIT stuff. They're not particularly looking at Craigville because it is already in process and approved,
Okay.
except for that, the concerns that have come out of the first two projects, they're looking into those concerns. And basically their goal is to get a better sense of the stakeholders and how could the first two projects inform potentially any future project, and not just for the town of Barnstable, but kind of for anybody up and down the coast. Really, when we started talking with them, what we felt was that being the guinea pig, there's some lessons learned. And so we would take some information and maybe be able to utilize that to make the process going forward more fruitful, bringing people together, having answers to questions like EMF or soul surface aquifer information, those kinds of things that, the residents are on one side of the fence and the proponent is on the other side of the fence, and maybe having some neutral third party information. So they're not necessarily looking at Craigville except for that lesson learned. So,
Okay.
people that have gained information and knowledge are coming forward, and they're not by any means only wanting to talk to people that are opposed to offshore wind because of the onshore impacts. They're willing to talk to anybody. So, they're talking to pro wind people. So they're not particularly and they're neutral.
How do we volunteer? Can we volunteer to talk to them?
Yeah, you can. You could reach out to the new group and they're willing to talk to anybody, honestly. So they like they've reached out to, say 100 people and they've interviewed say 30 people. I'm kind of making that number up. it looks like they reached out to a lot of people, and depending on which the groups, which group you're looking at, some groups responded more than others. So I can also send you that report, Jane,
Yeah.
so that you look
Yeah,
at that.
yeah, the link. I would like to talk to them.
Yeah, so they're neutral. Their goal is to gain information.
That's
on
great. I think that's great. I think it was a really good idea to have
Yeah.
Yeah,
neutral
Kristen, I was
party.
wondering if you could just circulate the report to the committee. I mean,
Yeah.
I'd be interested in reading that too. And that's a very helpful clarification. I just, Kristen, have a follow-up question. So it's not clear to me whether the focus is on the process or the substance of the issues, or both.
I think it's both. The idea is that because the first two projects are already done, there's no
Right.
really back on those. So the question would be, I mean, we've said as a town council no to landing at Douses, but the reality is we know that the state and federal government could come and supersede what we want to do as a town. So that if another project were to come, what things would we want to be heard about, considered, and what information would we want to know now or understand differently or provide as feedback to the developer that's different, knowing what we know now, having had one and another project coming. It's like our view of the world changes because we have experience. And I think part of it is can we utilize the experience we have so that going forward, the manner with which a future project might come, whether it be for us or some other, town, how could that look different and more robust? Because I think what we feel like is maybe there's places where that could be more robust, where there'd be more stakeholder input. So, they're trying to pull the audience in a neutral way to find out information from the stakeholders, because really in the beginning, the version of stakeholder assessment was we did some open houses at the library. There wasn't really robust community involvement around this. So that's kind of what they're looking at. So I think
Okay.
we felt that we really owed it to kind of like communities at large. How can what we've gone through be helpful to any future project?
Okay.
So
And
kind of more
they're
beyond just ourselves. We were
right, and
thinking,
they're looking at it, as I understand it, other projects as well, because they're really looking at from an academic standpoint to make an assessment and recommendations about how it could be done better in the future.
yeah, because we're the first group that's letting them into the offshore wind process. So,
Yeah.
a lot of their work was in the solar siting. So I think, obviously knowing where things are headed, we're excited that we were willing to be an open book and engage. And of course, you don't have to engage. There are people that have said no, and it's all anonymous. So that's nice as well.
Yeah, and I guess I'll give Kristen credit, because I think it was your idea to connect with this group. Is that right?
Yeah, because of the CEISP comments. Yeah, and just reading Sanjana Paul's comments were very interesting to me. So I reached out and she responded, and she had talked to Mark at some earlier date. So it was kind of all serendipitous or synchronous. That would be a better word.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Perfect.
All right. So any other new business? If not, we can talk about future meeting dates, but
Barry, I just wanted to say one other thing. I don't know if
Sure.
anyone was watching per se, not that you all needed to be, but the appointments committee has approved another member to your group. So that will be this Thursday. He will be the second read. And then he will go to the clerks and be sworn in. He's been watching your meetings, and he's been watching your meetings for the last, I don't know, I think you said 4 months, if I remember that detail correctly. So he's kind of up to speed on a lot of what's been going on. So
yeah, and this is actually, thank you, Kristen, for bringing this up. And I looked at his interview before the appointments committee on video, and I'll just maybe say his name is John Ruggiero. He's if I get this right, he's a policeman. He does catering. And what was the other thing he does? Oh,
Real
he's a
estate.
real estate agent.
Yeah,
So-
his name is Ron. Yeah.
Ron Roger. Okay, sorry. And so yeah, and seems very intellectually curious, and you know, he's been he may be attending this. Well, I guess he's not. Maybe he's, you know, he'll look at the video. But
Did you say he's also a real estate agent?
yes, yeah,
Real estate, policeman, and catering. That's pretty wide ranging.
and this is for one person.
Yeah.
Making me feel lazy.
Yeah. So, but in any event, you know, and I think he's a bit younger than we are, most of us, except for Chris, I guess. So, but that, I think that would be another plus, and we've been wanting to fill at least one of the two vacancies, if not both of them. So, yeah, I look very favorably on this, Kristen, if for what it's worth.
Yeah. I know Ron, outside of the appointments committee, so I think you guys are gonna be happy. Seems like a really engaged individual, which is, you know, it's always nice to put an engaged individual onto a committee.
Yes. Sounds great. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Let's talk about future meeting dates. You know, we talked about that. Let me start first by the December 23rd meeting. And at least in my mind, I wanted to have that meeting if DOER, you know, finalized its regulation for the to the building code. But since they haven't, I don't know if there's a need to have this. My thought was to, you know, people are planning for the holidays, and to not have it. But that's the first thing about what are people's thoughts about the December 23rd meeting date?
I'm going to be here, but I'm happy to go either way. We were going to travel the next day, and I was not in favor of it last time we talked, but I could be here on the 23rd if that works for everybody.
I will be
I would be
traveling.
inclined to skip it.
Pardon?
I would be inclined to not have the meeting on the 23rd. I think
Okay.
people will be kind of focused in other areas.
You're
Rob?
going to be traveling, Chris?
Chris, you have
Uh,
thoughts?
Yeah, heading to my in-laws for Christmas that day.
All right.
Yeah, I'm in either way.
Well, yeah, I would maybe suggest that we cancel the meeting,
Sounds good.
save our fire for January. So all those in favor? Okay, that's unanimous. So we're gonna cancel the next meeting. And then I wanted to get dates in January, and I think with Ron coming on at some point, probably later in January, you know, for other things that come up, we can amend them later on. But what I did, and I circulated, was based on our last conversation at the last meeting, that we would follow you know, the sort of the precedent of the second and fourth Mondays in the month. And if we have a conflict, we have holidays or some reason to move it. So so I guess the exceptions would be in February. I'm going to be away for the toward the end of the month, starting the 20th. So instead of February 24th, Monday, I would suggest either Tuesday, February 18th, or Wednesday, February 19th. And the the other date was in June. I think maybe just having one meeting in June, which, typically there's been one meeting per month in the summer. So having that on Monday, June 16th, I think between Jane and I, we had some conflicts, but that date seemed to be okay. But those are the dates that I would put out for discussion for planning purposes.
Those, whatever you want to do, I can make those dates that you've proposed in February. The date changes, and the second and fourth Mondays generally good. And that 16th of June is better than the other. I think we had talked about the 9th and the 24th, and neither of those may work for me. So the 16th is the best day for me.
Okay.
So that's good. Everything you've said is okay with me.
Anyone else?
All good for me.
Okay. Well, let's, okay, Rob, Chris, we're, okay. All right, so let's, I move that we adopt those dates for planning purposes for meetings for the first half of 2025.
Second.
All in favor? Okay, that's unanimous. So those are the meeting dates for the first part of the first half of 2025. All right, so the last thing we have is the agenda for the next meeting.
Barry,
So-
I'm gonna head out because I need to get to another meeting at Town Hall. Thank you very much,
Okay.
everybody. Have a
Thank you, Kristen. Yeah.
Bye.
Did you?
Well, I
Barry,
think
Oh, if
why
you
don't we-
want, if anybody wants to have either of those groups that I mentioned on the food waste invited, we've talked to Carrie Purcell from time to time. She was also at that meeting a few weeks ago, but wasn't a presenter. But she did mention that there is ongoing planning, John, as probably what we've all heard, with between the county through her position at the cooperative extension and the base for having land on the base that would then be able to serve as a food waste composting site for probably the middle and upper Cape towns. So that would be very helpful for Black Earth because they have to drive 70 miles off Cape with the stuff they pick up here. So, but it didn't sound like it was happening soon. She said, so in a couple years, this might be, so that, what on earth is going on here? We know we need to do it, but anyway, there, she's working on it. But if you would like to hear the individuals from the yacht club or the teacher from the Falmouth school system was really, I mean, they were all very enthusiastic. So
I mean, I'd certainly be interested in hearing from either or both.
okay. Does that sound good? I mean, I think it's
Yeah.
the kind of thing where you really have to, you have to build on the momentum of an enthusiastic, successful start, and then let it build out from there. Since it's a mandate that's not really being supported, but it's not the penalty is not being enforced either. But I think the best thing we can do is just to help other people who might be thinking about it to get started and have a role model.
So that's good with me to have one or both.
Probably one.
Yeah, I think, frankly,
Otherwise we wouldn't have time for other
yeah, I'm
stuff.
kind of, have the person from the Hyannis Yacht Club that would, to me, that would be appealing.
Yeah, I think that's good. And that's local, and that's, and they worked with Recycle Works and with Carrie, and they're Hyannis. So
Right.
they could potentially, one of our discussion points with them could be, how would you see us maybe talking to the Main Street Hyannis people or somebody, getting another group of potentially early adopters to listen to you lead a workshop? I think they'd be willing to do it from the enthusiasm they expressed.
So here's my suggestion. Why don't you, Jane and John, coordinate and make invitations as you deem appropriate, and then report back to Chris and me so we can put on the next agenda for the next meeting, and maybe looking at doing this for the next meeting, which will be in January.
And probably should give them two options. So one of the two January meetings.
Right. That's fine.
Okay.
And then I just, I think these meetings are more productive when we have sort of to-do items at the end of the meeting. And I think maybe going forward, Chris, and for new business at the end is to-do items for next meeting. So we, kind of focus on that, and so, for the next meeting, John and Chris and me can focus on, like, getting a survey and how we're going to do it with the transfer station and when. And it sounds like it's the three of us, and we can coordinate on that. And Jane,
Got the stretch code versus
okay,
base code on health impact.
yes, all right. So during this call, I've gotten calls from both of my children. Apparently, a parent's job is never done, but
Yeah, well, I will do a first draft of a list of questions.
oh, that'd be great. Yep. And okay, and then I'll report on sort of the status of green communities, and I'll report on conversation with David Anthony, or communication with David Anthony or Sean Hogan about updates to the green communities requirements. So
One of the things I saw in that package you sent out was you could apply for a energy manager that would, I think you had to already be a green community, but there was a grant for basically an additional support for the type of work that David and Sean do.
okay.
It didn't necessarily have to be an extra person, but it could be extra support for what you're already doing. And that, that to me, that's another reason to be a green community, because I don't think we're eligible to apply.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we'll look into that. Good. Anything else?
Happy holidays, everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
See you all
right.
before
Me
then.
too.
And yeah, so we're all getting a gift of an hour and a half. So
and John and Barry, I'll give you the follow-up for the meeting Thursday if you'd like to join.
Great. I had
that'd be
actually,
great.
yeah, no, I'm looking forward to that. Yep.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. I move we adjourn.
I move we second.
All in favor? All right, we're adjourned. Thank you,
Bye,
everybody.
everyone.